Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan, and it's great being back with you. We've been talking about the Jezebel-Narcissistic problems that many people have in dealing with that Jezebel spirit, identifying the narcissists in your life. And today we're on stage 4, or part 4 of the mindset of the mind game of the Jezebel narcissist. We've covered gaslighting, love bombing, and so on. You can see on the list. And trauma bonds is so hurtful, so damaging that we wanted to get into it a little more detail than some of the others, because oftentimes it's the last one. It's the last issue that comes up. It's the end result, and that end result can be escape, or it can be the fall. And in that fall, there can be serious damage done. So trauma bonds are that bonding that occurs often with that Jezebel narcissist due to repetitive abuse. And that repetitive abuse isn't one right after the other. It's in intervals. It's reinforcing intervals that occur. Those reinforcing intervals are of love and trust and then betrayal. And you never know what's coming next. And that creates strong bonds or emotional bonds that are very hard to break, not easily broken, we often say. Well, in this part 4 of the state, we're talking about the stages of trauma bonding. And I see it as 4 stages, but I also see these stages in conflicted relationships. The 4 stages of trauma bond, or it's also called betrayal bond, is fight, flight, freeze, or fall. We get into the fight and the flight, sometimes the freeze in a lot of relationships, but the fall is the devastating part in the trauma bond stage. Fight, well, you can imagine that in your minds. Our mind recognizes an impending risk of activating an impending risk to self in some way, and that activates the stress hormones that we've talked about so much in the past when talking about anxiety and depression. Those stress hormones, that amygdala in the limbic system of the brain, sending the signal to the thalamus and hypothalamus to send the stress hormones through the body, that adrenaline through the body. And what do? Well, you're ready to fight. And so there's an argument. There's quarreling that goes on during those times. You know, you're alert. You're very defensive to the wrong thing being said or a threat that might occur, and the hair stands up on the back of your head, and you go at it with an argument that nobody wins, and nobody ever wins in the argument. But that quarreling is not a good sign in any relationship. And in premarital counseling, where you see a couple coming in and they're preparing for marriage, but you're realizing, wow, they're quarreling a great deal. There's seems to be consistent conflict going on in that relationship. And when you start to see that as a counselor, you go, oh, well, you know, I don't think they're ready for marriage. I don't think they're ready to be with each other. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And certainly studies have indicated that if you've got a serious problem before marriage, it's not going to go away after marriage. In fact, it increases 11-fold after marriage. So if there's conflict going on before marriage, it's going to increase in intensity and the number of conflicts, 11 times. Wow, you don't want that, because that doesn't bring a bond in a marriage. It brings that crack, it widens the crack, a separation, and then what occurs next? Flight. either wise or unwise alternatives are considered and taken when flight occurs. And that's the fight or flight response that occurs in our brains, in that limbic system that you often hear about. We're either going to fight or we're going to run. And oftentimes that means there's going to be breakups during that stage. And so you see with these young couples coming in, oh, they've broken up 2 or 3 times before they come in for their marriage, pre-marriage counseling. Or might have a couple coming in for marriage counseling, and they've broken up multiple times in the past, even before marriage. And you know, that's a good indicator. Now there's something amiss here, something serious, and a lot of work needs to be done. And unfortunately, most people aren't willing to put that work in, and so flight. They escape the relationship, or they escape their responsibilities, or whatever that escape may be for each one. Then freeze occurs. So in betrayal bonds or trauma bonding, here's where we often see that freeze occurring. Fear sets in upon realizing a sense of powerlessness. This is when you believe you can't safely stand up or leave this person who's abusive, this Jezebel-Narcissistic individual. And so shock sets in. You feel overwhelmed. You feel a helpless dread coming over you. You freeze. What do I do? And that oftentimes is an indicator that the next step is going to occur. The next stage is going to occur where you give up, and that's the fall. The fall is a state of fading identity. You're losing that identity. You're recognizing, I'm mush. Who am I now? I once asked a workshop leader who was teaching a workshop on domestic violence, from the Duluth model of domestic violence that I was taking, and I asked her at the end, I said, you know, in your relationship that you broke away from, which was years that she was in a very serious, harmful relationship, what gave you the strength to do it? How were you able to pull away? And she said, I finally realized that I would rather be dead than continue in this. And that was when I wasn't afraid anymore to speak up and to leave. And all the things that he had threatened to do to her, killing her and whatever else, and the children and whatever else, never occurred. They were threats. They were the idle threats of someone who was not in their right mind. She left. She realized, yeah, I'm safe now. She got the help she needed. She became stronger, and she became a trainer in that field as a result of her experiences, so she could pass it along to others. She froze and she fell. And so that fading identity, that surrender of self, that submission, that servitude to someone more powerful, or at least you believe they're more powerful, by seeking favor through servile flattery or exaggerated attention, hysteria to get attention, and so on, demoralized and overcome by intermittent trauma. That I love you, I trust you, I hate you, you're hurting me, you're scaring me, and back and forth, back and forth. As we've said before, it's brainwashing, it's mind control. Those are games of the Jezebel-Narcissist, powerful games that over time take your life away from you. Within the mindset of the fallen, those rationalizations go over and over. It's like a tape replaying over and over again choosing to focus on the one good thing, the one day that was a good day, or the 1 hour that was a good hour, focusing on only the positive attributes of the abuser, that Jezebel-Narcissist who is so harmful, so hurtful. Well, you know, he does care about our dog, or he does care about about working hard, and so they focus on one good thing, and it's like the switch just switched. They can't see anything bad. They don't want to see anything bad, because that reminds them of the pain. That reminds them of their helplessness. It reminds them of their powerlessness and the fear that's overwhelming them. And so they justify things by making excuses. Little excuse here, little excuse there. Well, it's, you know, the Bible says we should stay married, and this and that. And we're going to talk about that next time in escaping or breaking from these abusive relationships. But they find the excuse to justify whatever it might be. Is it falling, or is it groveling? A cycle of abuse and reward reinforces faulty rationalizations to remain trauma bonded. In writing of the betrayal bonded or trauma bonded victim, Dr. Patrick Carnes, the foremost researcher in this field, said this. He said, "Loyalty to that which does not work, or worse, to a person who is toxic, exploitive, or destructive to you, is a form of insanity." That doesn't sound good, does it? What's that saying? You know, you keep doing something that doesn't work over and over again. You know, that's true insanity. You keep trying to hang in there in a physically abusive or mentally abusive. And you know, when I say abusive, we're talking serious here. We're not talking, you know, somebody that might be critical once in a while and so on. Somebody who says things they regret and then they make up for it and so on, but they get better because they work on it. We're talking about that person who enjoys doing that, who enjoys inflicting pain, who's sadistic and in wanting that power and control, so they are dehumanizing you in order to feel better about themselves, in order to get what they want. That hurts just thinking about it. Just thinking back the years, the 30 years of counseling that I've done in helping others who are in the midst of that, and the pain and suffering that I can remember they've told me about. How sad. And it doesn't have to be that way. And we're going to talk about some suggestions on how to get out or escape that pain and suffering in those kinds of relationships. Fear, terror, we are driven to survive. And when we're in the midst of fear and terror, what do we do to survive? We may have learned how to do it from the past. Maybe our parents taught us, maybe someone else taught us, maybe we read something, learned something. Okay, this works for them, so I'm going to do it. But if we didn't learn those things, what do? How do we survive? And it's very unfortunate that some don't have those skills or never learn those skills, and they succumb, they fall, and they're trapped. And it's almost impossible for them to get out. But nothing is impossible. With God's help, all things are possible. And so the empowering truths to bring up regarding this is in Jesus Christ the Messiah, opening up my heart and soul to God's love allows me to lean upon His understanding and His will. It's not just me now, It's him. It's putting on the mind of Christ. It's seeing things through his eyes, hearing through his ears, speaking those things through his mouth. What would he say? How's he hearing this? What understanding am I gaining by looking at it from his perspective? What would he want me to do? In Jesus Christ, the Messiah, we'll have peace in the midst of danger when we're obeying God. That's so important. I've spoken with people who have been held hostage by guns, kidnapped, and all sorts of other things. And the believers, the ones who were Christians, who loved God, who practiced what they preached, in those situations, they all said the same thing. They had a peace. They knew God was in control. They had a peace that God's will is going to be done, that God is going to handle this, whatever happens. And even if the worst happens, their soul is safe. They're going to heaven. They're going to have eternity. They'll be out of this mess that we're in this world. Now, that's not just giving up. That's saying, okay, God's going to cover this somehow. I don't know how, but it'll be exciting to find out. And there's a peace inside to know that. Yeah, you're still afraid. You still have fear of whatever the unknown might be, of what's going to happen, but the peace overrides the fear. In Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 to 40 in the Amplified Bible, we read this. And Jesus replied to him. And so Jesus is talking back to the people, whoa, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? Oh, look at these bad things. What about the Romans and all this and that? And Jesus said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Now, when you think about that for a moment, it's not just talking about Jewish rules, the 10 Commandments and so on. It's talking about life. It's talking about, how do I handle an impossible situation? How do I deal with this difficulty that's occurring? How do I speak to this impossible person who is so abusive? Put the Lord first before doing anything. Because when we put the Lord first, when we love God more than anything else, there's that peace, and with that peace comes those insights. Here's a thought. Here's some words to say. Here's what I have learned because I've loved the Lord my God with all my heart, all my mind. I've been studying. I've been learning. What would he say? What would he do? What's best? I'm learning, gaining knowledge. I'm gaining understanding. I'm gaining insights into getting through, into surviving this world, preparing for my adventure in the future. I'm getting through things a whole lot better than those who haven't been doing that, than those who don't have that relationship with God. I find it much easier trusting in him and walking through my day with him at my side. Whatever's happening, I get through it faster, I get through it better, and I have more hope, and actually good things come back as a result of it. If you got something out of this today, press that like button or the bell, and we'll notify you when a new program comes out. Next time we're going to talk about escaping this trauma bond, so please tune in. God bless you. Bye.